Good day, welcome to the issues with me, Irbad Ibrahim. And today, a few hours ago, Ghana's Finance Minister, Honorable Ken Ofori Atta, presented the mid-year review of Ghana's budget. And we are privileged to have in the studio two members of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Finance to help us do a thorough analysis of what happened on the floor of the legislature. To my immediate right is member of the majority, Honorable Anthony Effa. Honorable, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian.
And then he is joined by his colleague from the other side of the aisle, Honorable Benjamin Podo, MP for Ho Central. Sir, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I'll begin with you, Honorable, because it was your day. You are in government. What is your general, overview of what happened in Parliament a few hours ago?
Well, having listened to the Minister for Finance today, I get a lot of hope for Ghana and Ghanaians. The Minister came there to tell us how far he's been able to go with the budget that was approved for him in 2017 for 2018 usage.
Okay.
And he came to not tell us only the good story, but difficulties and challenges that he's encountered over the period, among which is the inability of government to mobilize all the domestic revenues as anticipated.
Okay.
If you look at the numbers that are given, the expected revenues, even though fell short of the targeted first quarter figure, by less than 1%, if you check that against the 2016 numbers for the same period in 2017, you see that revenues have grown by about 16% above what we achieved in the first half year of 2017.
Okay.
So it's not a bad story. Okay. It is indeed good for us to mobilize 16% more over the 2017 numbers.
Okay.
Albeit we did not achieve 100% target. And
okay.
the figure that remains is still quite substantial. It's about 870 million cedis gap, which government has to find money to meet. And as we progress in the discussion, I'll be able to indicate what new policies and programs are in place to achieve.
Honorable MP, you and your colleagues were quite optimistic and upbeat about the first budget that was read last year. You called it a Sempa budget. Would you stick your neck out and still stick to your guns that this still remains an Asempa budget?
Indeed, if we have to be very, very sincere to ourselves, we work within a global economy where sometimes you cannot control every factor that determines your revenues and your expenditure. But there are some that you can control. The expectation is that the projected 51 billion CD revenue, taxes and grants that was expected for 2018 full year, the minister has revised it slightly to about 50 billion cedis. What that tells all of us is that even though the expectation was to do 51 billion, it's likely to do 50 billion, given the trend, the rate at which we are going.
Okay.
And so if you set yourself a target of 51 billion, Brian, and you achieve 50 billion of it, that should be a good story for all Ghanaians. What we do not know is whether or not the external forces will be great, like prices of our commodities. We do a lot of exports and rely on the revenues from that. Export of agricultural produce, cocoa, particularly. We do oil exports, and then we do non-traditional exports and a couple of other products that we export. Because they are commodities, the prices are usually not determined by ourselves. So you cannot go straight on to say that you are sure you're going to achieve 100% target. But whatever we're able to mobilize, given the strategies that have been put in place by the minister, what's important is how we utilize that for the benefit of Ghanaians. And for that, I can guarantee, based on my listening to the minister, that we will do our best to use the money such that Ghanaians will have full benefit from it. One of the ways he says he's going to do this is to ensure that we have value for money for every government expenditure that we make. And this mentality, if it sinks well with all Ghanaians over time, I'm sure we should be able to reduce the wastage and the leakages in the revenues that we mobilize within the year. So very good programs, very good plans, and Ghanaians should feel very, very happy today that the minister came to tell us the good story, the Asempa story, as he continues
Honorable
it.
Podo, would you be on the same page with your colleague that this still remains an Asempa budget?
I'm surprised, perhaps worried by my colleague's assertion, because what the minister painted to us today on the floor of the House is different from what he is saying, because the minister clearly stated in his presentation that revenue targets were not met. In fact, I can read paragraph 77 to you, if you wish. The program was to raise 18.813.5 million Ghana cedis, that is 18.8 billion during the period. But what was realized is roughly 17.4 billion, about 1.4 billion shortage.
That's a deficit. Isn't that impressive enough?
That's the reduction in the shortfall in the revenue target. Okay. So I don't know how that can be described as good news. If you are expecting to get 10 and you get 8 or even 9, okay, you cannot describe it as good. If you had exceeded, then you'll be clapping for yourself. But here's the situation. And when we talk about a difference of 1.4, it's not small money. It's 1.4 billion. And that alone is what we need to fund the free SHS in a year. So it's a whole lot of money which we were unable to raise. So I don't know how we can describe that as a very good budget or a very good situation we find ourselves in. I don't know how Asempa that is. And as a result of this shortfall, it is not only for this half year. The minister has gone ahead to make a lower projection that can be found on page 54, I think.
The minister made it quite clear that provisional data indicates that total revenue amounts to 17.4 billion, with the gross public debt being at 150.
No, I'm talking about revenue.
Okay.
You can find it on page 54.
Okay.
The budget for 2018, as approved last year, expected to raise 51.039 billion in revenues.
Okay.
And as a result of all these events, the minister is looking beyond the first half and is projecting that at the end of the year, we cannot raise the 51 billion. We are going to raise 50.6 billion. That is the projection. So already the first half has failed to achieve the target. Okay. And he's telling us that even by end of year, he cannot achieve the target. So it cannot be Asempa. Secondly, as a result of this, the minister has had to cut total expenditure as well. From that also can be found on page 57. Page 57. The minister has cut the 28 budget expenditure from 61.2 billion to 60.8 billion. So it means that there is something wrong from the beginning, and that wrong thing projects up to the end of the year. So you have to cut down expenditure, and you have to cut down expected revenue. So this cannot be a simple.
Honorable,
This
when you were
cannot be
in
a
the
simple.
university, I'm sure for your first degree, to have A+, you needed maybe 75 and above. But 73% would still be a gentle and respectable pass, wouldn't it?
You see, I've already explained to you that the loss in revenue is 1.4 billion, and it can derail a complete major program by the government. It can derail it. So it is not a question of whether you have got a B minus or a B plus. We are talking of the quantum of money that cannot be realized. And the projection goes beyond that. And that is why the government has had to introduce 3 new taxes now. They've told us on the floor that there are no increases in taxes. But as we go along, I will show you that 3 new taxes have been added to the existing taxes which they promised they were going to remove. Okay. We were going to remove the special import levy. We were going to remove the National Fiscal Stabilization Levy. The government has reintroduced them, and they are functioning. We are now paying them. Okay. And in addition to that, new taxes have been introduced. That is the AU levy, which is imposed upon all imports that we bring in. That is expected to raise about 90 million. It's a new tax which we passed. Okay. And is being implemented.
I'm sure, Honorable, and when we come back from our first break, there will be an opportunity for us to expand on the points you've raised. There is a short clip we would want to show you on what happened on the floor of Parliament. We take that and come back to the studio shortly.
Quarter GDP estimates released by the Ghana Statistical Services in June 2018 indicate that real GDP grew by 6.8% for the first quarter of 2018, compared to 6.7% reported for the first quarter of 2017. The industrial sector grew by 9.6% compared to 11.8% in the same period, and the services sector by 5.2%, higher than the 3.3% recorded in the same period in 2017. Mr. Speaker, in the domestic economy, growth in monetary aggregate slowed during the first 4 months of 2018. World money, including foreign currency deposit, recorded a year-on-year growth of 17.5% by the end of April 2018, compared with a growth of 26.6% at the end of April 2017. The disinflationary trend experienced in 2017 continued, Mr. Speaker, during the first 5 months of the year, largely supported by stability in the foreign exchange market and generally favorable macroeconomic developments. Headline CPI inflation declined from 12.6% in May 2017 to 11.8% in December 2017, and trended further down in the first 5 months of 2018 to 9.8% in May 2018. The arithmetic, Mr. Speaker, it is plain that inflation is a far more devastating tax than anything that can be enacted by the legislature or the executive. And inflation, Mr. Speaker, is going down. Exchange rate. The Ghana cedi remained relatively stable, both on the interbank and the forex bureau market, largely due to improved macroeconomic conditions. Mr. Speaker, the interbank market, cumulatively, the cedi has appreciated by 0.2% against the US dollar during the first 5 months. Mr. Speaker, as we mentioned...
You will come back. Honorable, let's look at the positive highlights of the review. Then we look at the negative ones. And just gone by was a clip, and the finance minister ended on the note of the cedi doing quite well relatively against the dollar, the past 18 months being better than the past 6 years of some other administration. Do you agree?
Certainly, the numbers do not lie, and I'm sure the Minister of Finance will not come to Parliament to give us his own numbers. These are numbers that have been verified. In fact, as we speak, the Minister is speaking, giving us information as at May, though June has passed, because the numbers for June have not been confirmed. That's why he relies on May. But he made a point that as soon as the numbers for June are confirmed, so that is to give credibility to the numbers that he's giving. In the year 20, I have all the statistics that we can look at, but between 2015, even 2012, can go back, we realize that for the first half year, as we compare, now it's depreciated by about 2.4%. But we had situations where it's depreciated by 17%, and in 2015, the depreciation for that period was 31.5%. These are confirmed values. So the depreciation of the cedi has some positives and negatives, and I'm sure our friends who have read economics or understand will really appreciate this point, that when your currency gets sluggish a bit, like 2.4, it is also very good for exporters. Remember, our economy is an open economy, and we have exporters and importers. When the exchange rate is spiraling, running, say that you can't grab it, then becomes a worry for every country. We have listened to the Minister for Finance, and we had the opportunity to listen to the governor of the central bank. And he says we should not panic, that there were external forces, and really the interest rates in Turkey, the interest rates in the US were all they were all increased, and there seemed to be some certainty about getting value of the investment. So you find people moving funds that have matured, investment that have matured in Ghana, finding alternative destinations for investments. When you do that, then there will be some pressure on your own domestic currency. But for a half-year depreciation of 2.4, Ibrahim, this is good news. It is not terrible. The exporters are excited about it. So when they sell abroad and they come back home with, say, $100,000,
that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money when converted. So they can do their production. So the appreciation of the currency in itself isn't bad. It is the extent to which we are depreciating, like the 31% that we registered in the 2015s, like the 17% that we registered, they were quite alarming. The assurance today is that we have sufficient reserves to control this. But the central bank governor is not throwing so much money because it becomes artificial. We want the system to work by itself. And so this government has done so well in managing this stability. That's why the minister said it has been relatively stable, because it's relative stability. So if there was a problem, then the problem should be, are we able to generate enough FX? And I believe Ghana, we don't have a challenge with that. The deposit, the banks, the money bank, the deposit money banks, they do not have challenges with meeting the trade bills that come to them, because the central bank is able to put so much money on the market. So it is true that the cedi has depreciated vis-a-vis the international currencies like the dollar, but to what extent? And that is what is important for Ghanaians. And the comfort I'm giving to Ghanaians, especially traders and business people, is that within this parameter of 2.4% depreciation, there is no need to panic. They should still go about their normal businesses. It also should encourage the exporters to do more, so that we still have a return of these FX currencies back into the country. It is that makes it relatively stable. So we have a big control, both from the fiscal and then the monetary side.
Okay.
Ghana is able to control the value of the city vis-a-vis the other currencies.
For an economy that heavily relies upon imports, would the depreciation of our currency against a major trading currency like the dollar be good news, just as your colleague is depicting?
I think he doesn't have to give verbal comfort to the people who are in the forex market, to the importers. He knows full well that our imports far outweigh our exports. So overall, it cannot have a positive balance on the economy. We are reeling under the pressures that are being exerted on the city. He gave one example, the outflow of capital. Why is it that those who came to invest will not want to keep their monies here? There is something happening elsewhere which is better and into which they feel they can put their monies. So they have to. And you see, one of the major reasons why the CD will be under pressure is that those who have invested in our bonds, these bonds, everyday bonds, are taking interest. And they are not taking CD interest. Even if they take the interest in CDs, they want to send it back to where they brought the money
so
in.
It ends up costing the taxpayer
yes,
more.
Especially the 2.25 billion
Euro
bond, that bond which was issued as a domestic bond at 19.75% interest, which was purchased by Frank Templeton, and which interest is 400 million per annum. It's getting due. The guy wants to send his money to New York. He's not sending CDs there.
Honorable,
but let me come back.
Kindly hold your peace. We have our correspondent in Koforidua gauging the mood of the population after what happened in Parliament today. Hello, good day.
Oh, okay. Good evening, and we are in the central part of Koforidua in the eastern region, and we are here this evening to sample views with relations to the budget that was read this afternoon in Parliament by the Finance Minister. So I have here with me a lady, Sister Esther, to talk to us about what he makes of this budget. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Bacho so utie budget no. You na bacho den na ufa fi na den na uhu e budget no ho a uhu se eye ana se enye.
Oh, so far budget ni de me hu se eye because free SHS ya omo kan se omo be ye omo timi capture and national nursing training allowance so omo timi capture no so. And I feel so no tax and so I'm out for cancer on better so near day. Almost on better so more ready and so man to they have been able to maintain it. It's me who said they are still on course. It's I Ghana for more chance. No more mom I would say omunya would say no more show. Near on bay.
Yo na pacho den biam so na uti wo ma wo hwanka omo de tutu yi aka no so ebeboa.
Oh okay say no sanya omo ba enche na omo gusu ye niam no me stadium kakra me stadium na so far no there I think they are on course.
Okay. You Auntie Esther, GTV Edawase. I also have with me here a gentleman here to talk to tell us what he also made of the budget. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Please, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Okay, we thank you. Please, were you able to listen or watch the budget?
I was working. I didn't actually listen, but I heard some excerpts from what they were saying.
So please share with us.
What I heard was that the VAT was not going to be increased. And then there were speculation about other taxes going to be increased. But you know the term that the minister used, it was very technical. I couldn't understand it. So unless it has been explained by some technical, maybe before we understand what it meant, especially looking at the NHIS, people were speculating that they will increase the levy over there. But what the minister said, something like flat, something like that, I didn't understand. So maybe from tomorrow going, we will begin to understand what it meant by that flat.
Okay, aside that, what else did you hear?
Oh, as I said, I was busy working. I was busy working. So these are some of the things that people were talking about. So that's what I also heard. And
Thank you very much. Oh, okay. So we also have with me here I also have with me here Mr. Brewu, who is also coming to tell us more, who is also, I'm meeting him. So as I said, we have with me here Mr. Brewu, who is here to also tell us what he had in the budget. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Please, let's go. Please, what can you tell us about the budget?
The budget was a nice one, simply because they didn't increase the VAT.
Say. Okay, it's okay. Please, you can stand here.
The budget was a nice one. To me, it was good. It was feasible because they didn't increase the VAT for us. As a businessman, if they had increased the VAT, it would have cost me my business in terms of people patronizing my product. So to me, it's good.
Aside the VAT, what else did you hear?
I can't say much. I can't say much about it, but I'm expecting that they will it will open a floodgate for people to establish businesses for the young ones to also to get business.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brewu. We heard views from a cross-section of the public in Koforidua on the budget that was read this afternoon in Parliament by the Finance Minister. So from Koforidua in the Eastern Region, this has been Priscilla Asante reporting for GTV.
Asante from Koforidua, thank you so much. Honorable MP, you belong to the minority side of Parliament, and there's a question from the whole area where you come from. Can the MP mention just one country that can survive without taxes? When you spoke about 3 additional taxes that were introduced. Okay.
You see, that question is very easily answerable. There is no country which cannot survive.
Can survive without taxes.
There's no country. There's no country. But in the run-up to it, I don't want him to derail, to take my attention from my focus. But he should know that, yes, countries rely on taxes. I pay my PAYE. I pay taxes on everything that I buy. But when you come and tell people that you are moving the country from taxation to production, they don't need to be taxed in the way that a government should earn money from the citizenry, and you turn around to impose the same taxes, then you have a credibility gap by telling people that you are moving from taxation to production. Now you have reached a point where you are moving back to taxation from production. I don't know whether they have finished the production. So yes, governments live on taxes. So where you are going around telling people to vote for you, don't tell them that when you come, you will not tax them. Don't tell them that. That's the credibility thing we are talking about. But you see, there are a lot of comparisons which my colleague was making. The finance minister came to Parliament under Section 28 of Act 921. The Act enjoins the minister to submit to Parliament not later than 31st of July, prepare and submit to Parliament a mid-year fiscal policy review. Now, the expectation is that under B, C, D, and E, the focus will be on the 2018 budget presented. What happened from 1st January to the end of June, for which you have to come back to Parliament. You get the point?
Yes, I do.
So if you are going to 2014, 2013, and even 2000, you are going outside the provisions of the law. Let's focus on what you said you would do in 2018 and what you have done midway. Then what are your projections? What are the reasons for your successes? What are the reasons for your failures? I think that's where the focus should be, so that we stop talking about what happened in 2016, what happened in 2015 in the presentation of our analysis. The point is that you said you raise this revenue. You did not raise it. What is the reason? You said you make this expenditure. You had to cut it. What are the expenditures you have cut? What are its effects on the citizenry of the country? That is what we should be focusing on.
Yeah.
So my colleagues going back and back and back will not help us. The Ghanaians now want to see what's happening to them. And that is what our attention should be focused on.
Okay.
Yes. Now, I have said earlier that the government has surreptitiously imposed taxes on government now with this mid-year review. Number one, all people earning above 10,000 will have to pay additional taxes, the personal income tax, PIT, which will be deducted from their salaries. It means a reduction in their take-home pay. Then,
but how many people make 10,000 a month?
oh, quite a lot. Go, all the banks, some institutions, all those senior officers, they all, the chief directors, and they all make more than that. They are going to pay. Whatever the case is, the situation of anybody who falls into this category is going to deteriorate. The situation of anybody who falls, even if it is one Ghanaian, his situation will deteriorate. Number two, the minister announced that there will be taxes, you call it a levy, on what he described as luxury vehicles. It will be paid at the point of importation and will be renewed from year to year. That is an additional tax.
Honorable, I'm sorry,
let me give you the third one.
Yes, yes.
The third one is very cunning. The minister said, now the 2.5% that we pay as VAT for national health insurance and the 2.5% that we pay as VAT meant for GET Fund are going to be
straight levies.
Straight levies. You know the meaning? The 12.5% he declares as VAT still fine. The meaning is that the whole 17.5%, which used to be input VAT for business people, for manufacturers, and
retailers and distributors.
Yes, the input VAT, which used to be 17.5% and which is recoverable with output, can no longer hold. You can only recover 12.5%, even though you are going to pay the 17.5 still. You pay the 17.5, but you can only recover 12.5% as input VAT. That is for producers, manufacturers, big retail organizations. And the government itself is projecting that they are going to earn between 900 million and 1 billion Ghana cedis from that. So those people in Koforidua who said they have not increase VAT. There's nothing going to happen in that. That they should go back and think. That is our duty, to explain to them the effect of what the minister said. It cannot be that obvious to everybody. But this is the explanation which we are giving them, that there will be higher cost of production, since the producer cannot recover 5%, 5 out of the 17.5% that they pay as VAT. They cannot recover 5%, and therefore his cost of production will go up, and therefore he only have to transfer that cost to the consumer, because he may not want to lose out in the market by not selling at that price.
Honorable, I think your point is
so. The explanation is that there is going to be increased prices all across for importers and for manufacturers and other business people.
Yes, I'll give your colleague the opportunity to respond to some of those issues. But for someone who is opulent enough to import a car with a engine capacity of 3.0 liters and more, and someone who can earn 10,000 Ghana cedis a month, don't you think taxing the rich to provide relief to the poor is interventionist enough to make people happy?
If you have 10,000 plus and your take-home pay falls below what you have taken home, will you be able to assist your extended family as you are capable of doing now? In Ghana, for every employee on government payroll, he has about 6 people to cater for, on the average 5 or 6 to cater for. So if your take-home pay disposable income reduces, then it means your ability to even help your family and the extended family decreases.
Marginally. Okay,
exactly.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Honorable, would you want to respond?
Yeah, of course. I think Honorable Kulu, it's misleading viewers on some of the points that he's made, and I would like to clarify that. When he says, for example, that the bonds that were issued, the 2.25 billion cedi bond that were issued, is going at 19% or so. And so government has to pay about 400 million every year to the subscribers. That is a matter of fact. But the reality is that those bonds were already, or those debts were already existing at 27%.
No. Let me not all of the amount. Let me explain. Not all of the amount was used to refinance.
You didn't explain that. But so let me do my.
Not all of the amount was used to refinance. So most of it was used to support the budget.
I think when you were speaking, I kept quiet.
No, but I don't want you to mislead the people.
Is that when you say that bonds are costing the country, of course, bonds are not for free. And if the bonds were at 19% or 19.5, as you put it, we had an extended tenure. When these things were maturing on a weekly basis, and government had to pay about 1 billion cedis on a weekly basis. These are figures from Bank of Ghana, they are not from me. And we're paying 27%, 26% on bonds that we can now pay at 19%. It could have been higher than the 400 million you are talking about per annum. So that argument that somebody is making money out of us. Of course, if he has to put his capital in Turkey or Singapore or even nearby Cote d'Ivoire, possibly he will make some money. So that argument for investors should hold. Secondly, we're just talking about the taxes.
Additional taxes on the rich.
Yes, I mean.
Not only the rich.
Yeah.
Including
why
on the
the explanation is that, first of all, the tax on the vehicles is the first point that you made. You said these vehicles will be taxed at the point of entry. That's not the case. It is at the point of registration where you have to renew the registration of your vehicle. That's when you are charged. It is only at the registration that on an annual basis, and please take note, the word is annual. Yes. If it is imported, you can't have it annually imported. So that is only for clarification, not to say, just to clarify that position. So it will be paid not once, but as often as you go to register your vehicle
renew it,
for the luxury non-commercial vehicles. I think that point has been made, and it makes sense. When you study taxation, it's one of the basic things about equity. You try to take from here and put it here, just so the social, facilities.
No, the issue is that
increased.
these taxes did not exist. They are being introduced today.
Yes.
So it's a new tax. That's all I'm trying to say.
It's not a new tax, but
it is a new tax. So whatever form it comes, it is a new additional tax.
The other thing is that, without you interrupting too much, when you talk about this additional tax beyond 10,000, remember that the tax that has been introduced is on the extra beyond the 10,000. It's not, so it is not simply to
I'm
say
an accountant. I know that one.
Okay, so I think we don't have any disturbances there. Now, the other thing that I would like us to take note of is that the fundamental challenge of governments, MPP, NDC, is the inability of governments to mobilize enough revenue to meet all the projects that we have.
When did you know that?
Government of the day is using several new methods of getting money to still do infrastructure. And we are talking about using our resource base in partnership with other countries who would provide funding for infrastructure, including even a bauxite and aluminum refinery in Ghana. There's a provision for local content, about 30% participation, even in that. Are we not happy about this? This is very good news for us, where we have about 3 years moratorium on the construction of construction of roads, bridges, and all the infrastructure that we need at no cost, upfront cost. And the repayment is going to come from refined aluminum or bauxite. It's not going to be raw bauxite that's exported. So the factories have to come up, and then we produce and sell the refined bauxite or alumina at those going prices. So we are looking at various alternatives, because indeed, if you took out the statutory funds, employee compensation and tax, interest, we don't have anything in our hands left for those kind of big infrastructure development. So what this government is doing differently is that we can still achieve progress in terms of development and improving the welfare and lifestyle of people by not necessarily going into huge borrowings. Borrowings today, I think on the floor of Parliament, we talked about 5 or 6, even 10, it doesn't matter. What these are intentions of the president, that every project that was started, we need to complete them. And Mr. Uncle Ben and myself are on the same committee. We see that everything that comes to us, including the 10 that were read today or so, have been in the pipeline for the last 3 or so years. Okay. And so we need to make sure we get them crystallized so that we can have services to our people, hospitals to our people, infrastructure to our people. So there's no reason why you should say that leave those because it is the previous government that started them. All the trumpeting of infrastructural investment here and there, here and us, whether any of them have been fully repaid. None of them is being repaid. And it is, for us, we understand that it's a continuum, it's your word, that we would continue to do all those things. So when we come to Parliament with these loans, remember that these are initiatives that have started, which we are determined to complete, and then introduce the new ones, which will see to the railway. I was happy when I was reading about the Accra Paga railway line. I just am itching to see it. And I think the minister said to us that they are about closing a transaction where they are eager to come and do it, build, operate, and transfer later at a later time.
But Honorable, you say you are servicing smart loans. Isn't it alarming that over this period under review, debt has set up to 154 billion Ghana cedis?
We took it from about 122 billion. And then at 122 billion, the debt, the debt GDP ratio was 73 plus. Let me finish. I think these are figures that you can't dispute. At 122 billion, the debt GDP ratio was 73 plus.
And at 154 billion is 63.8%.
We have reduced that by 30. We've grown the economy significantly, because if you grew the numerator or the debt stock, and you are still reporting a 63%, then it means that we are doing well. We are managing the economy so well. We are conscious of the cost of borrowing. And so if you read this report by the minister, that the recent raising of bonds, I would like to read that.
Yes,
it says that Ghana is B-rated, and I would like to read it for the hearing of all of us. That the first time a B-rated sub-Saharan country has priced a sovereign bond at this level, and this level he means 7.6 and then 8.6. Okay, it's indicating strong investor confidence in the country. Okay, he goes on to say that we are also able to raise it for 30 years. These are new innovations on the capital market, and Ghana is doing all this, so we have 30 years to repay this facility. What's even interesting about it all, that it must be noted that despite the size, see, these were oversubscribed about 4 times. About 4 times oversubscription. And then part of it is also used for liability management. In other words, we are even meeting maturities, and we're making sure that we are running the country, the budget. What is that implies is that
your
after all these borrowings,
about the state of the economy, but you continue to complain.
Yeah,
I'm rather surprised
man.
that you think
he should be a happy man.
You say that he's painting glowing tributes about this.
These are figures that you've read. They are in your hands.
You have borrowed in such a manner that within a space of 17 to 18 months, you moved the debt from 122 million to about 100. Look, this 154 is not, does not cover all the debt that we have. We have the data. We have the data other than what is here. This excludes some bonds which were issued to sort out GCB. And today, he has just confirmed, borrowing today alone, when it is added within this week, it far exceeds what has been reported. We believe that this is not a total debt situation that Ghana has. But I am amazed that we are applauding ourselves for borrowing. Why? Why are we doing that? The previous government set up a policy of creating a sinking fund, which will refund our debts, so that we will be reducing our debt stock. But you are coming and increasing it, and you are happy. You are jumping up. What the government should be doing is to enhance that fund, debt service account, to enhance it, to pay back our debts, not to be paying glowing tribute to ourselves that we have been able to borrow. We have been able to borrow. No, what kind of thing is that?
We have never said...
We should be refunding our loans, some of which, if I see the debt report, there are some amounts, 20,000, we are still owing. It's included in the public debt, taken in 1993, 1994. We have those debts on our books.
So
we should be refunding.
Sense to stop borrowing.
We should be refunding our debt.
Honorable MP,
we should be refunding our debt.
Stagnate
and
voting
and please to look at our profligate expenditures. If you have 110 ministers doing what? Some ministries you have about 5 or 6 deputies, and we are paying them. We are giving them all the perks of 2 cars, 4x4, saloon, driver, fuel. We are looking at that. We are going to do ID cards for the country at 1.2 billion. That is 5. It's in excess. The dollar is now 5 cedis. So when you multiply by 1.2, it is about 6 billion. They are going to spend 6 billion on Ghana card. We should be looking at our expenditures.
Honorable,
we should be looking at our expenditures.
Honorable,
so that we can cut down and then release the fiscal space for revenue generated to go into development. It talks about development. That is very good. We should build our roads. We should build railways.
Yes, we
are
but beginning to wrap
not
up.
necessarily from borrowing, because
Honorable,
wait, let me land on this. The former candidate for, the running mate for now President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, Dr. Bawumia, went around this country and told people that the money was here. They will not tax Ghanaians. And that he had worked in the Bank of Ghana. So where is that money? Which he was referring to, rather than to be levying new taxes and be borrowing as if there is no end to it.
We are beginning to wrap up in the next few minutes, but I feel there is consensus around the table that there are leakages in the system, and therefore we need to find effective ways of mobilizing enough revenue for the country. As part of the things the Honorable Minister said on the floor of Parliament, he says government is going to empower the GRA to continue to audit and prosecute tax defaulting companies from September 30. Do you feel happy about such enforcement?
I have said, I think
this could be your last words.
I think I'm saying it for the third time, that governments have not been able to mobilize domestic revenue because of non-compliance. And so what sanctions should go with that? They are coming as penalties and even other forms of sanctions like imprisonment, because people are willfully under-declaring their revenue, so the incomes or the taxes that they are paying are also low. So prosecuting people for doing those things is in the right direction, and I support it. The other thing is that some of these multinational companies, there is an audit that is ongoing. Consultants have been hired, and already their findings suggest to us that they are not paying enough taxes from the revenues they get, and we're targeting the telcos, the mining companies, and some other large corporates that are in the country. I'm sure if we're able to block some of these leakages, we'll be able to serve the country better, have some revenue. What I would like to tell Ghanaians as I sum up essentially is that, and I'll repeat the Honorable Minister's words, that let us not run our economy using social media economics. Let us listen to him, let us do the research properly, and then let us have hope that once we started on this trajectory, we are not going back. The ultimate target is to see Ghana as a country that does not rely entirely on aid. When Mr. Kodo was ending his statement, he was saying to us that we're borrowing for everything. That's not the case. We certainly would borrow to complete projects that have been started, but we also use domestic resources as much as possible. And in the new thinking of this new government, we're saying that we have adequate resources in the ground that we are not exploiting. So let's use this as our shareholding contribution, call it contribution in certain partnerships that will give us the necessary infrastructure. My understanding is that under the Sino Hydro project financing arrangement, we're going to get for the phase one close to about $500 million, and these monies are going to come from infrastructure development. The second phase could be as high as $1.5 billion US. So let us be happy that Ghana is going to be a great country. We have a visionary leader, and the people in Koforidua commend you for seeing the light outside the studio, that everything is well, and we're hoping that we all support this government to do the best for our country. We're going to stop all the leakages. We're going to introduce tax measures that will protect the little revenue that we have.
Honorable Podo, I give you the final word.
It's easier said than done. And every government which will be able to collect existing legitimate taxes, we give the backing. He is a party to this law we passed about using equipment to record sales and other things.
Our time is actually up.
Yes, what I'm saying is that this government came on the wings of no taxes, but it has reversed gear and is imposing taxes on the citizenry of Ghana.
There are no taxes.
Prices are going to go up because of all of these new measures the government has introduced. And we are going to approve them because they are more than the people who really care for the people in this country. The point is that government is no longer on its course. It has reversed gear from production back to taxation, which they said was bad and which they promised Ghanaians they will never do. They have criticized the former president, President John Mahama. They have criticized him for borrowing. They are borrowing 10 times more than Mahama did.
That's not true.
That is it. That is it.
Not true. For
that
our
is
cherished viewers, you can't say this.
Please, that is what is happening. Even today,
stock from 9 billion to 122 billion.
No,
in 8 years.
that is not correct. That's not correct.
From 9
you
billion
cannot
to
use
122
no, if you want us to, if you want us to calculate that, we'll have another session and come back.
Yeah, let's come back.
Then we will use the exchange rate prevailing at that time. You cannot use a $1 to 1 CD rate in 2000 to calculate debt and then put it at 9 billion and come to have the same debt, and you are not calculating it at 4.85 CDs to the dollar, and you say that we have raised it. Please, that one we can come back to it and do the arithmetic. But what I'm saying is that the government has reneged on its promises to the citizenry of Ghana.
No VAT.
We did
not pass any VAT. We maintain our VAT.
The Kofodra people have to come to me. I will explain to them the effect of the VAT policy.
Members of the Parliamentary Select Committee on the Finance. So we come your way.
That we don't look.